Is there a fate worse than death? Is there a scenario where a criminal would gladly choose capital punishment over life imprisonment? Well, as surreal as it sounds, there are prisons in this world that make the death penalty a merciful sentence. Prisons riddled with unspeakable horror that would make your stomach turn. So, take a deep breath, because things are about to get very ugly. Number 5. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison, Kenya. What makes this prison immediately stand out from the rest is that it is home to the worst of the worst. Built in 1954 by its British colonizers, the prison was modeled after an old-style colonial system to house offenders during a state of emergency declared in October 1952. Today, it still has its original gallows, and it has gotten even more hellish than it was more than half a century ago. On one hand, it is overcrowded. A prison that should house 1,200 inmates has almost 3,000 inmates crammed within it. On the other hand, this overpopulation has bred serious viral diseases like HIV and AIDS, syphilis, tuberculosis, and a whole plethora of diseases that ordinarily should be under control. Even worse is the unending unrest and corruption that plagues the prison system. Since the prison is the government's favorite dumping ground for political dissidents, much of the population is uneducated. This, in turn, has led to a telephone fraud ring within the prison system where scores of prisoners defraud innocent Kenyan citizens of their money outside the prison walls. Kamiti Maximum Security Prison is a cesspool of chaos, and only the smartest, the bravest, and the most ruthless can survive behind its walls. Number 4. Gildani Prison, Georgia. They say the prison is better. They say the violence has stopped, but that doesn't take away the terrifying legacy of Gildani Prison. In 2012, a video was leaked by a 35-year-old former prison guard turned whistleblower who filmed the horrors that inmates pass through at the hands of other guards. The video is too graphic to show here, but I can tell you what they did and had been doing for decades to prisoners. Every night, random inmates were routinely sodomized with broom handles, and one of such was featured in the videos. They were often beaten, drowned, their bones purposefully broken, burnt, all at the hands of the sadistic guards. It was institutionalized torture in the 21st century. A former inmate would recall, "They tore off my fingernails, damaged my skull, broke my leg bones, ribs, nose, and teeth. I am 43 years old, but I look like an old man. I often fall down while I am walking." Today, they say the prisons are fine, and that the torture has been brought to a halt, but I doubt you would want to check that for yourself. Number 3. Mendoza Prison, Argentina. The top 90 most dangerous convicts in all of Argentina are held in Pavilion 5 of Mendoza Prison. That section is so dangerous that no guard has the balls to enter that section, and they often leave the inmates' meals at predetermined spots around the door. That might sound deviously cool to some, but don't be fooled. Unsurprisingly, the prison has a serious overcrowding problem. 1,600 inmates share a facility that was designed for only 600. There are no beds, and prisoners are forced to sleep on the floor, where they are often subjected to random, intense, and frequent torture. But it doesn't end there. Toilets are non-existent, as prisoners are forced to defecate in plastic bags and urinate in bottles. There is a literal sewer of garbage, human waste, and slime running through the corridors. And conditions have become so unbearable that there are reports that prisoners literally sewed their mouths shut in protest, demanding better living conditions. And yet, it still gets worse. Their food is sludge, and those who aren't strong, fast, or smart enough often go hungry and die under what the authorities have made a habit of calling mysterious circumstances. Number 2. Diyarbakir Prison, Turkey. Diyarbakir Prison was at the center of one of the most abusive regimes in Turkey in the 1980s and 90s. Thousands of Kurdish men and women suffered horrific forms of torture, and at that time, it was regarded as the worst prison in the world. These days, second worst, but nothing has improved. In fact, you could argue that conditions have gotten worse, because in the same prison where the sludges of society are being housed, children are also locked up within, and the torture that these inmates are subjected to ranges from physical torture to psychological assault. On the more physical, violent side of things, inmates are beaten, violated, maimed, forced to eat excrement, and electrocuted by their genitalia. On the more psychological, dehumanizing side of things, the same inmates are forced to salute the prison director's dog, participate in random mock executions that might or might not ever happen, and forced to bathe in the sewers. To show you just how desperate the situation is, prisoners routinely go on dry fast, protesting prison conditions, and more often than not, these prisoners simply die from starvation. More recently, 4 prisoners set their bodies on fire, and later on, an inmate set his cell on fire before hanging himself in resistance. Number 1. Camp 22, North Korea. Camp 22 is not just one prison facility. It is a series of identity prison camps containing up to 200,000 prisoners and stretched across the length of North Korea. The few extremely lucky survivors have likened conditions in the camp to the atrocities committed against the Jews during the Holocaust. Starvation is not a novelty. It is every prisoner's reality. Inmates are fed a sludge of cornmeal and cabbage every day for the duration of their existence, and to avoid dying of malnutrition, prisoners have to supplement their diet with rats and insects. Rats became such an essential part of their diet that rodents literally went extinct. If you know anything about the way rats reproduce, you'll know that that is impressive, to say the least. On average, 20 to 25% of the prison population die every year. When inmates aren't dying of malnutrition, the prison guards make their lives into a satirical piece of horror. Everyone is fair game to the prison guards. Little girls born in the camp are often fed to dogs to train them to be more vicious. Inmates are brutalized as stress relief for the guards, and if they attempt to escape, everyone in their family, even those unaware of their escape attempt, will be tortured. Pregnancy is also strictly forbidden. Those caught pregnant are often tied to a tree, the fetus cut from their stomach, and then they are shot. Dying in Camp 22 is the best thing that can happen to you. Living, however, means never-ending suffering.